Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. AI has been everywhere lately. It seems like it's all anyone's talking about.
It really has kind of exploded, hasn't it? It's fascinating to see how quickly it went from like this niche topic to front page news.
It really is, and for a long time, AI felt like something out of science fiction. Like we'd see it in movies, but not in real life. But now it's becoming a reality.
It is, and it's happening fast, which I think is part of what's got everyone so intrigued and maybe a little nervous too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, said AI is more profound than electricity or fire.
That's a bold statement. When you hear something like that, it really makes you stop and think.
Right? It does. I mean, that's putting it right up there with some of the biggest game changes in human history.
Absolutely. So it's definitely worth taking a closer look at, trying to understand what's driving this AI revolution.
And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're diving into an article titled Artificial Intelligence, Global Race, India's Challenges. And it really lays out the landscape, the players involved, and the potential hurdles India faces in this global AI race.
It does paint a pretty comprehensive picture, doesn't it? It even makes an interesting comparison.
Yeah, the article compares a recent development in Chinese AI to the Sputnik moment.
The Sputnik moment, that's a powerful analogy, isn't it? That was a real turning point in history.
It was when the Soviet Union launched that satellite. It kind of shocked the world.
It did, especially the U.S. It was a wake-up call that they weren't alone in the race for technological dominance.
Exactly. So this article suggests that something similar is happening now with AI.
I'm curious about that. What is this development in Chinese AI that has everyone talking?
It's called DeepSeek, and we'll get into that in a bit. But before we do, I think we need to step back for a second because AI is so much more than what we've been seeing the headlines with, things like ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is definitely having its moment, isn't it? But you're right, it's just one small part of this much bigger picture.
Exactly. And the article really emphasizes that. So before we get into DeepSeek and all the geopolitical stuff, I think it's important to just make sure we're all on the same page about what AI actually is and what it can do.
Okay, so let's talk about AI beyond the chatbots. What else is out there? What are some other examples of how AI is being used right now?
Well, like AlphaFold, for example.
AlphaFold, now that's a fascinating
It
one.
is. It's this AI tool that's completely revolutionized biology. I mean, it can predict the three-dimensional structure of proteins with incredible accuracy.
I remember when that came out, it was a huge deal. But to be honest, I don't really understand why protein structures are so important.
It's okay. A lot of people don't. So basically, proteins are these complex molecules that do all sorts of things in our bodies. They're like the tiny machines that make life possible.
Oh, okay, so they're essential for basically everything our bodies do.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding their structure is like having the instruction manual for how they work. And that's crucial for developing new drugs and therapies.
I see. So AlphaFold is like giving scientists this superpower to understand how proteins work at a much deeper level.
That's a great way to put it. And the thing is, before AlphaFold figuring out a protein structure was a really slow and expensive process. It could take years and millions of dollars.
Wow. So AlphaFold is like a shortcut, a way to accelerate scientific discovery.
It is, and it's been so impactful that its developers were awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
A Nobel Prize, that's amazing. It really shows you how much AI is changing the game in so many different fields.
It does, and that's just one example, right? We're seeing AI being used in everything from medical imaging to weather forecasting to creating art and music.
It's mind-blowing, really, and it feels like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with AI.
It does feel that way, doesn't it? And that brings us back to DeepSeek and this Sputnik moment that the article talks about. How does this Chinese AI fit into all of this, and why is it seen as such a wake-up call for India?
Well, DeepSeek is a type of AI model called a large language model, or LLM for short. And it's pretty revolutionary because it was developed for a fraction of the cost of its Western counterparts.
Okay, so it's not just that China developed this advanced AI, it's that they did it so efficiently. That's what caught everyone's attention.
Exactly. It's a sign that things are shifting. The article basically argues that leadership in AI is no longer limited to Silicon Valley. And that's a big deal.
It is, especially for a country like India that's trying to establish itself as a global player in the tech world.
Right. So the question becomes, where does India stand in all of this? How do we compete in this new AI-powered world?
That is the big question, and to answer it, we need to understand a bit more about these large language models. What are they? How do they work, and why are they so important?
Okay, so let's break down these LLMs because they really are the foundation for a lot of what we're talking about when it comes to AI.
I'm all ears. Okay, so these large language models, they sound pretty complex. What exactly are they and how do they work?
Imagine a massive neural network, like a brain with billions of connections, and it's been trained on a huge amount of data, text, images, code, you name it.
So it's like this giant sponge soaking up all this information.
Exactly. And by analyzing all that data, it learns patterns and relationships. It starts to understand the nuances of language, the complexities of visual information, and even the logic of code.
Wow, so it's not just storing information, it's actually learning from it.
Exactly. That's what makes LLMs so powerful. They're not just databases. They're able to process information and generate new content based on what they've learned.
So like ChatGPT can write poems and compose music because it's learned from all the poems and music it's been trained on.
That's right. And the same model that powers ChatGPT can be adapted to do all sorts of other things, like translating languages, writing different kinds of creative text, summarizing complex documents, or even generating code.
So it's like a Swiss Army knife of AI, one tool with a whole bunch of different functions.
That's a great analogy, and that's why these LLMs are so strategically important. Whoever controls these models has a huge advantage in developing future AI applications.
I see. So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about who has the resources and the expertise to build and control these models.
Absolutely, and that's why this Sputnik moment with DeepSeek is so significant. It shows that China is serious about AI, and they're willing to invest heavily in it.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly powerful technology and we've got China making big moves. What about India? Where do we stand in all of this?
That's the question, isn't it? And the article dives into that in detail. It highlights both the challenges and the opportunities for India in this global AI race.
So let's start with the challenges. What are some of the hurdles India faces in developing its own LLMs?
Well, first of all, building these models requires massive amounts of data. And not just any data, it needs to be high-quality data that's relevant to the tasks you want the model to perform.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about quality too.
Exactly. And then there's the computational power needed to train these models. We're talking about huge amounts of processing power, something that requires specialized hardware and infrastructure.
So it's a resource-intensive endeavor?
It is, and that's another challenge for India. Access to this kind of computing power isn't always easy or affordable.
And then there's the expertise, right? You need people who understand these complex models and can develop them further.
Absolutely. Building and training LLMs requires a highly skilled workforce, data scientists, machine learning engineers, and AI researchers.
So it's not just about having the money and the hardware, you need the people too.
Exactly. And finding and retaining that talent can be a challenge, especially when you're competing with companies like Google and Microsoft.
So there are definitely some hurdles for India to overcome, but the article also mentions some unique opportunities. What are those?
One of India's biggest assets is its linguistic diversity. We have 22 official languages and countless dialects. That's a goldmine of data that could be used to develop incredibly powerful multilingual AI systems.
That's interesting. So our diversity, something that we often think of as a challenge, could actually be a huge advantage in AI development.
Exactly. Imagine AI systems that can seamlessly translate between all these languages, understand the nuances of different dialects, and even generate content in various regional languages. That would be transformative, not just for India, but for the world.
It would open up so many possibilities. That's exciting. But how do we get from this potential to reality? Where do we even start?
The article suggests that India could leverage open source models. These are AI models like Llama and Mistral that are publicly available and can be adapted and built upon.
So instead of starting from scratch, we can use what's already out there and build on it.
Exactly. It's a more efficient approach, and it allows researchers and developers in India to focus on customizing these models for specific Indian languages and data sets.
That makes sense. But even with open source models, there's still the issue of data, right? We need high quality data to train these models and make them work effectively.
You're absolutely right. And that brings us to another important point, the need to secure Indian data sets.
Okay, so what does that mean and why is it so important?
Data is the fuel that powers AI. The more data you have and the more diverse it is, the better your AI models will perform. But here's the thing. If this data is collected and controlled by companies outside of India, it creates a dependency.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about having the data, it's about who owns and controls that data.
Exactly. We need to establish clear policies and regulations around data ownership, privacy, and access. We need to ensure that Indian data is used to benefit Indian society, not just the profits of foreign companies.
So it's about data sovereignty, making sure that we control our own data and use it for our own benefit.
Exactly. And this is something that the article really emphasizes. It's not just a technical issue, it's a matter of national interest.
That makes sense. So we've got this incredible potential, but also these challenges around data access and control. What else does the article highlight in terms of India's opportunities in AI?
Well, one thing that stood out to me was the discussion about India's IT sector.
Right. India has a thriving IT industry, But the article suggests that there's a gap when it comes to AI research and development.
Exactly. There seems to be a disconnect between the potential of this sector and the reality of its involvement in AI.
So why is that? Why aren't these companies with their resources and their talent at the forefront of the AI revolution?
That's a good question. The article offers a few possible explanations. It could be a risk-averse culture within these companies, a focus on short-term profits rather than long-term investment in research, or perhaps a lack of awareness about the transformative potential of AI.
It does seem like a missed opportunity. If India wants to be a leader in AI, we need these companies to step up and play a more active role.
I agree, and the article argues that this requires a shift in mindset, a recognition that AI is not just a niche technology, but a fundamental force that's going to reshape the world.
So it's a call to action for India's IT sector to wake up and realize the potential of AI and the role they can play in shaping its future.
Exactly, and it's not just the private sector that needs to be involved. The government also has a crucial role to play in fostering AI development in India.
What kind of role are we talking about? What can the government do to support AI research and development?
The article stresses the need for a comprehensive national AI strategy. It's not enough to just talk about the potential. We need concrete actions, investments, and policies that will create an environment where AI can flourish in India.
Okay, so a national AI strategy. What would that look like? What are some of the key elements?
Well, for starters, we need to invest in building the necessary infrastructure. That means supporting the development of powerful computing facilities, procuring the specialized hardware needed to train large language models, and making sure that researchers have access to the resources they need.
So investing in the hardware and the infrastructure is critical. But what about the people who will be working on these projects?
That's equally important. We need to develop a skilled workforce. That means investing in education and training programs focused on AI, machine learning, and data science.
So it's a multi-pronged approach, investment in infrastructure education, and a clear national strategy to guide it all.
Exactly. And let's not forget the ethical considerations. We need to make sure that AI is developed and used responsibly in a way that benefits all of society.
That's a really important point. We can't just focus on the technology itself. We need to think about the social and ethical implications as well.
Absolutely. And that means having open and honest conversations about the potential risk and benefits of AI and involving a wide range of stakeholders in the decision-making process.
So it's a complex issue with a lot of moving parts. But it sounds like there's a lot of potential for India to be a major player in the AI world.
I think India is at a crossroads. We have the talent, the resources, and the potential to be a leader in AI. But we need to act decisively. We need to invest in research and development, foster a culture of innovation, and create a regulatory environment that encourages responsible AI development.
It's almost like we're at the beginning of a new technological era, and India have the opportunity to shape this era to define its own path.
I agree. And the decisions we make today will have a lasting impact on our future. It's an exciting time to be involved in this field, and I'm optimistic about India's potential to contribute to the global AI landscape in meaningful ways.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. It's amazing to think about how much AI is already changing the world and how much more it could change in the years to come. But before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to the individual listener because all of this might seem a bit abstract. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture, but ultimately AI is going to impact people's lives in very real ways. So how do you see AI changing the lives of everyday people in India?
Well, think about healthcare, for example. AI could be used to improve diagnoses, create personalized treatment plans, and make healthcare more accessible, especially in rural areas.
Yeah, I've read about AI being used to analyze medical images like X-rays and scans, and it can detect diseases much earlier than humans can.
That's right. And AI-powered systems could also help manage chronic conditions and even predict potential health risks leading to more preventative care.
It's like having a virtual doctor constantly monitoring your health.
In a way, yeah. And it's not just healthcare. AI could revolutionize agriculture in India. Imagine AI systems helping farmers optimize their crop yields, manage water resources more efficiently, and predict weather patterns more accurately.
That could have a huge impact on people's lives, especially in rural communities.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about education. AI-powered platforms can personalize learning, adapt to different learning styles, and make quality education more accessible, even in remote areas.
So there's this incredible potential for AI to improve people's lives in so many ways. But, there are also concerns about the negative impacts of AI. Like, what about job displacement? Seems like a lot of people are worried about AI taking away jobs.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. Automation will inevitably change the nature of work, and some jobs will be displaced.
So what happens to those people?
Well, I believe AI will also create new types of jobs that we can't even imagine yet.
So it's not necessarily about AI taking away jobs, but rather about the need to adapt and learn new skills?
Exactly. We need to invest in education and training programs that prepare people for the jobs of the future jobs that will require creativity, critical thinking, and a deep understanding of how to work with AI.
It's interesting because it almost seems like AI is pushing us to become more human, to focus on those skills that set us apart from machines.
I think that's a great way to put it. And it's not just about individual skills. We need to think about how AI can benefit society as a whole, how it can be used to address some of the challenges we face, like poverty, inequality, and climate change.
Those are huge issues. Can you give me an example of how AI could help with something like climate change?
Sure, AI can be used to analyze massive amounts of data about the environment to identify patterns and predict future trends. This could help us develop more effective strategies for reducing emissions, conserving resources, and adapting to the impacts of climate change.
That's really interesting. It sounds like AI could be a powerful tool for solving some of the world's most pressing problems.
It could be, but it's important to remember that AI is just a tool. It's up to us to decide how we use it and what kind of future we want to create with it.
That's a really important point. We need to be thoughtful about how we develop and deploy AI, making sure that it's used ethically and for the benefit of all.
Absolutely. And that requires open and honest conversations about the potential risks and benefits of AI. We need to involve a wide range of stakeholders in the decision-making process, not just tech companies and governments, but also everyday people.
This conversation has been incredibly eye-opening. I'm learning so much about the complexities and possibilities of AI, and I'm sure our listeners are too. But before we wrap up, what would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners?
I think the key takeaway is that AI is no longer a futuristic fantasy. It's here, it's evolving rapidly, and it's going to have a profound impact on our lives. We need to be informed, engaged, and proactive in shaping how AI is developed and used in India.
Well said. It's an exciting time full of possibilities, but also a time for thoughtful consideration. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI and India's role in this rapidly evolving field. Until next time.